See.
So yeah, while she was in high school and they had MySpaces when it started, and then from then on we were like, yeah, we got to put a name on this, and we got to teach people how to not be included and definitely not be a keyboard thug, as I call them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Being in that, I'm under the millennial category, but I still know a life without the internet and social media. And so I'm in that in-between category. But for me, definitely the cyberbullying came in around the MySpace age. And even in high school, we were around cyberbullying before it had a real name. Mm-hmm. And so I knew coming out of high school and going into college, and as I began to speak to more youth and young adults, this was something that was going to get worse. Even though we want to prevent it, we knew it was something that was going to get more intense because there was only a more broad spectrum of social media nowadays. And so I just knew that seeing from my friends, being involved with regular peer pressure and then adding that cyber effect to it, that is something that I had to not only help prevent myself, but speak up to help teach people how they can also be a part of preventing it. Because I've always had it in my nature to, stand up for the person who has a voice that just may not carry or be as loud as they may grow into it later down the line. But I've always had my voice. So if I can do nothing else, I can speak on behalf of someone whose voice is going unheard at the moment.
That is absolutely fantastic, which leads me to this, another topic you guys touch on, during your seminars, self-esteem, mirror check, and more. Talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, so for me, my mom, and I'm not just saying this because she's sitting right next here with me, but my mom always told me, how beautiful I was. She always told me how smart I was. She always told me how confident she was in me, and that helped to instill my own confidence within myself. And we mentioned cyberbullying, but before cyberbullying, there was just regular plain old bullying. And I experienced some of that between my youth and young adult age, because I would get teased for, the size of my lips or the way my hair texture was. And for those who can't see me right now, we call this in our family soup coolers, when you have big, luscious, full lips. And I was born with my lips being basically the same size, and I had to grow into them. You know how some people grow into like their ears or their face?
Yeah.
I had to grow into my lips. And so she always instilled in me, how beautiful everything about me was. And so when people in my class would try to tease me about my lips or my hair, it was literally me not understanding. I was like, what do you mean? They're beautiful, because my mother already instilled it into me. And so, just to kind of get back to your question about, the mirror check and the confidence building, that's why it's so important for me, because everyone doesn't have someone who is helping to boost their self-esteem. Yeah. And so with the way social media makes perfection look like it's actually obtainable, and it's simply not. Social media, we like to say, is like the highlight reel. People are choosing what they can show you. They're not showing you the full story.
Yep.
But somehow people are still believing that what people post is the full story, and that's simply not the case.
It really isn't the case. And anyone who's followed me and followed this show, I talk about all kinds of things that I've gone through, being homeless, losing a child, losing a lot of things. And social media shows you one aspect, but if you get to know the person, you will know all of their aspects. And one final point that I want you guys to touch on, when I saw the title of this, it hit home. And ladies, I want you to really listen carefully. Please talk about this topic, how to balance it all in heels. I gotta hear you guys talk about this.
Yeah, that actually stems from a workshop that I do and a part of a book that I wrote. I'm in a book called Power Moms, and my chapter is called How to Balance It All in Heels. I came up with this because, again, as a former professional basketball player, you either saw me in high top or high heels. Either way, it was going to be something high. And being a military spouse, like I said, we lived several different places, from Illinois to Virginia, Maryland, Texas, overseas in Italy, California, and Cleveland for my husband. So we've lived several different places, and people are always asking me, Shirley, how do you balance it all? You're married, successfully married, I might add. Ding.
Ding, ding.
You have a child. You have a child who's productive and a positive member of society, if you will. And I have my mother and my mother-in-law, our business, and trying to fit in everything else. So
when people would ask me how I balance it all and heal, it was kind of an easy transition for me to come up with that workshop and talk about how to balance life and heal. And for that one, I talk to women about how to balance the things that are in their life, you know, from spiritual to financial to your legacy, you know, to your career, to your relationships. You know, there are 6 or 7 different elements that I try and focus on when I tell people how to balance it all and heal. And I just tell them, you pick what elements are important to you in your life, and then you balance that to your standards, not to the standards of social media or anybody else, but to your standards.
That is absolutely fabulous. That is fabulous, and I'm so glad I had you two on. Folks, I always close my show with dream big, do bigger. Here are 2 examples of it, and they're here on the show with me, Shirley Walker King and Valencia King, and I want you two to tell people where they can find you.
Yes, you can find me at Shirley Walker King on Facebook. Again, that's Shirley Walker King. There should only be one. That's just me. And then on Twitter, I am Mrs. SWK, the number 1. And also Shirley Walker King on Instagram. So either Shirley Walker King or Mrs. SWK1. Absolutely. And you can find myself at I am Valencia King because, well, I am Valencia King. See what we did there? That is on Instagram, Twitter. I am on Triller and TikTok for all of my social millennials out there. I'm on the TikTok and the Triller doing my dances. And also my YouTube channel is called Valencia King TV. And you can actually see my first episode of my television show About and Out with Valencia King, which airs currently on Uplift TV. So you can see the pilot episode 1 on my YouTube channel. But if you don't remember anything else, just type in Valencia King and your girl will pop up.
Love it. Love it. This dynamic, fantastic duo was here on Snowman in the Morning and Snowman Digital Media, folks. Get to know them, follow them, and use their positivity to uplift your positivity. Ladies, I absolutely have had a fantastic time talking to you two, and I thank you guys very, very much.
Yes, the pleasure was all ours. We appreciate it, and stay strong, people. Yes, indeed. Thanks for having us.
Folks, I got more for you after the break.
In times of need, this is what most insurance sounds like.
Thank you for holding. What's your policy number?
But when you have coverage from AAA, you've got insurance with 3 A's, and that sounds like this.
Thank you for calling AAA. Is everyone okay?
This is the sound of the savings you get on insurance. But this is the sound of AAA savings when you include a membership with your coverage. Insurance with AAA? That's service worth singing about. Insurance. So does your insurance sound like insurance? Or does it sound like insurance with AAA? A brand that's been helping members for over 100 years. Visit AAA.com/insurance for a free quote and save up to 20% on auto and home. In times of need, this is what most insurance sounds like.
What's your policy number?
But insurance with AAA sounds like this.
Is everyone okay?
See the difference at AAA.com/insurance.
You're tuned in to the Daily BS. Sports and culture combined into one.
Okay, folks, I open up with my thoughts on some of the NFL's free agents, or actually just one. But I want to bring someone on here that has been following the news just as much as I. From the Sap and Cat Show on Full Press Coverage, for you good folks on the Full Press Coverage Radio Network. This is one half of the Sap and Cat Show. This is John Sapacatti, and he joins me right now. How are you, my friend?
Doing well, Snowman. We're hunkered down fighting the coronavirus. We're going to get through this and be back to being sports fans again down the road.
Yes, indeed, we will. And, folks, if you remember my program on Monday, Cole Johnson was with me. Just take care of yourselves, all right? Please, just take care of yourselves. We're going to get through this. And to help us get through this, the divorce is final in New England. Tom Brady is gone, and all indications are he will sign with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'll open there. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, I'm not really surprised. For the last 6 months, or at least actually since last August, when Brady signed a 1-year contract with the New England Patriots, but had the option to become a free agent at the end of last year, I felt that his days were numbered with the Patriots. It often happens with these great quarterbacks, right? Johnny Unitas spent his last year with the Chargers, Joe Namath with the Rams. You had Joe Montana spend his final 2 years with the Kansas City Chiefs. We know Peyton Manning spent 4 years with the Denver Broncos after a great career with the Colts. So there's been a number of quarterbacks that end their career elsewhere, and I thought that Brady would end up doing that as well. His dad 5 years ago, Tom Brady Sr., said it's not going to end well when he leaves the Patriots, and apparently he was very precious about what is taking place right now, because now there's going to be a bit of mudslinging. Robert Kraft is the owner, saying that if he wanted to come back, we would have welcomed him. But they gave him such a low-ball offer, if no offer at all, since the end of last season, that Tom Brady had no choice but to go elsewhere. I was pulling for the LA Chargers because I thought that would be the best spot for him, but he went with Tampa for a few reasons. First of all, I think the proximity to his son in New York and also to Costa Rica, where he and Giselle like to spend a lot of the off-season, a little closer from Tampa to those spots than, say, from L.A. or Vegas. So I think that had something to do with it. Those state income tax in Florida, although, when you're earning $30 million a year, it's about a $4 million to $4.5 million difference. He's got a ton of money, but, people with money like to make more money. But there were a few other options there as well, including great weapons with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and to play for a coach in Bruce Arians, who is the polar opposite of Bill Belichick. I think all of those kind of factored into equal parts for Tom Brady deciding to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
And the Buccaneers for a while seemed like a long shot. I had predicted that he may land with his first favorite team, which was the 49ers, but the 49ers pulled out. They stayed with Jimmy Garoppolo, which I think is a good move for San Francisco. Got a couple other moves that they made. We'll get to those in a moment. But, I was surprised, but then I wasn't surprised for the same reasons that you named. Tampa Bay does become a legitimate contender now in the NFC South, to challenge New Orleans. So you're going to see Tom Brady and Drew Brees twice, and I think they go into the Hall together. But what can get the Buccaneers over the hump when it comes to challenging the New Orleans Saints for supremacy in the NFC South?
Well, you look at this closely, Slogan. The Buccaneers were 7-9 last year. They had 2 overtime losses. Tom Brady never loses in overtime. And also factor in that Jameis Winston had 30 interceptions. Tom Brady, on an average season, will have 8, 9, maybe 10 interceptions. So he'll take care of the football much better than Jameis Winston. Just the fact when he walks into the building, everybody becomes better. We heard that when Peyton Manning went to Denver. Peyton Manning showed up at the Denver Broncos. Everybody in that organization became better for that. I think the same thing happens in Tampa Bay. Let's not forget, they had the 3rd-rated offense in football last year. The second half of this season, their defense was top 10. I think they're going to contend with the New Orleans Saints in the NFC South, which, now becomes a very quarterback-heavy division. You've got Brees, Brady, also Matt Ryan, who is a former MVP and will be a Hall of Famer someday. And now you get Teddy Bridgewater with Carolina. So that division is loaded with great quarterbacks, and it's going to be fascinating to see. But he's going to be worth, I would say, 4 more wins in a year, though, just by the fact that he takes care of the football so much better than Jameis Winston.
Yeah, he does. Let's look at Carolina. They signed Teddy Bridgewater after rumors came out that he was heading to my hometown team in the Chicago Bears. That folded. The Bears are going after Nick Foles. But how much better does Carolina become now with Teddy Bridgewater at the helm and Cam Newton seemingly on his way out?
I think if I was running the Carolina Panthers, and no one asked me to do that, obviously because there's more qualified people than myself, I would have maybe tanked for this year and look at Trevor Lawrence potentially being the number 1 pick in the 2021 draft. They also had Luke Kuechly retire. They're in a transition right now. Bridgewater may be good enough to get them to 6 wins, which would be the correct record to have the number 1 pick in the draft. So if I were the Carolina Panthers, I think that if you take Bridgewater off of it and move on from Cam Newton, they'd have one of the worst rosters in the NFL. Then you go all in on tanking for Trevor Lawrence. Apparently they decided that they wanted Bridgewater to be their quarterback for the next 3 years, and we'll see where Cam Newton ends up, because I think he can still play provided he's healthy. So Carolina certainly will be the weakest team in that division. You have New Orleans, you have Tampa, and also the Atlanta Falcons. They finished up really strong last year. They kept their coaching staff in place, which I think was a smart move because Arthur Blank is a really solid owner and decided, well, let's run this back one more time because we saw that the Falcons were really good the second half of the season. That's going to be a fun division to watch next year.
It is going to be a fun division. It's going to be a fun NFC. And here's my final NFC note. With the addition of Tom Brady to the NFC South, along with Drew Brees and Matt Ryan that you mentioned, Kyler Murray having a year under his belt, are there more than 4 teams that can challenge the reigning NFC champion San Francisco 49ers? And the second half of that question, with them dealing their team MVP in DeForest Buckner, does this finally give Solomon Thomas a chance to step in among that 49ers front line and keep them as solid as before? I heard a couple of opinions say the 49ers are going into a rebuild, which I think is ridiculous. They just made a money move. It cost them one of their best defensive players. But I still say San Francisco is the team to beat in the NFC. Tom Brady or no Tom Brady?
They probably have the best roster in football, right? Top to bottom, Snowman. I mean, you know, they've got a really strong offensive line. They've got weapons for Jimmy Garoppolo. They can run the football. Defensively, all 3 layers, they're strong. I think the secondary is a bit old and maybe a little bit shaky as Richard Sherman, you know, is still an outstanding what he was in Seattle. They're still a loaded team. And I think what they did with making that move with the Indianapolis Colts is because of money. So now instead of 5 first-round picks on the defensive line, they have 4. So they're still pretty well stocked there at the defensive line position. And then they get the 13th pick in the first round, and they can address some other needs, maybe along the offensive line, because the 2020 NFL draft is loaded with offensive tackles. Maybe you want to address that as well for the future to make sure that they have someone to protect Jimmy Garoppolo. The 49ers will be heard from this year. The Seahawks, the Rams, those teams are loaded. My Packers, I know they overachieved last year, 13-3, but I think they'll be back in the mix, obviously. And then you look at Dallas and Philadelphia, the 2 contending teams in the NFC East. And NFC is always deeper than the AFC. That's why you see teams like the 49ers go from 4-12 to getting to the Super Bowl. You don't see that as much in the AFC. It's usually the pecking order is established and followed throughout the season. You see Kansas City has been a contender for the half dozen years since Andy Reid went there. The Patriots were always in play. The Ravens are always a contending team. So the NFC is much more fluid. You know, teams can go from 4-12 to going to the Super Bowl and then maybe bouncing back the following season. It's going to be interesting to see the NFC this year because now you've got all these great quarterbacks playing in that conference.
You absolutely do. Let's take a peek at the AFC really quick. And already the first team that got an upgrade was the Indianapolis Colts when they signed Phillip Rivers.
I'm not a fan of the move, Snowman. I think Phillip Rivers is certainly at the end of his career, had a down season a year ago. There were some questions with the Chargers offensive line, but he had plenty of weapons there. He is turnover prone, seems to always find a way to lose close games. He's been durable over the years. I don't really know if it's a major upgrade from Jacoby Brissett to Phillip Rivers. Let's not forget the first half of the season, Jacoby Brissett was playing really well. Had the Colts at 5-2. Sustained an injury, and that kind of derailed him and their entire team's season. So I don't know if it's a real upgrade spending $25 million on Phillip Rivers. Also committed to $21 million with Jacoby Brissett. So you're spending nearly $50 million on your quarterback position. They have a lot of cap room, you know, because they've moved on from bad contracts and they've got a young team. I don't think it's a real upgraded quarterback, but that division is really up in the air right now when you look at what the Houston Texans did by essentially giving away, in my opinion, the best receiver in football.
Absolutely.
For a second-round pick. DeAndre Hopkins going to the Arizona Cardinals. I don't think the move in Houston is that positive right now after Bill O'Brien, who I'm not sure if he's a worse coach or a worse general manager, moved on from DeAndre Hopkins, one of the best players in the sport. I'm sure that Deshaun Watson's not thrilled with that. Tennessee had that run last year, and of course the Jaguars. They just can't seem to get out of their own way. So that's a division where you may see 9-7 winning. It could be the Colts. But I question if Rivers is much of an upgrade, if any, over Jacoby Brissett.
Back to the AFC East, and Stephon Diggs goes from Minnesota to Buffalo. How does that help them?
Big time. He's an outstanding receiver. I'd say he's a top 10, top 12 wide receiver. I don't know if he's going to get frustrated with Josh Allen. Josh Allen is still growing as a quarterback. He had a good second year. If he continues to grow, he'll become what we could consider a franchise quarterback. He's still not a very accurate passer. He does make some really head-scratching decisions out there, like that lateral that he had at the end of the playoff game against the Houston Texans. And Diggs seems to be a player who doesn't have a lot of patience. He seems to have a lot of patience with Kirk Cousins, but he is an outstanding talent. That's going to help Buffalo. They've built a really strong culture there. Right now, the Patriots still remain the favorite in the AFC East, according to Las Vegas, although all the casinos are shut down right now, so I don't know how much we can believe in them. But I think Buffalo's going to be right there with the Patriots. Look, last year Buffalo won 10 games, made it to the playoffs. They've lost 2 close games to the Patriots in the regular season. If they can split with the Patriots or maybe even sweep the Patriots, we could be looking at the Buffalo Bills winning their first division title in over 2 decades.
That's one half of the Sap and Cat Show. John Sapacatti joining me to talk some free agency football. And, folks, I'm going to have him on here very, very often, the same partnership that I have with Mike Debate. You're going to hear Sapacatti. You're going to hear a lot of great friends and a lot of great sports minds from the folks at Full Press Coverage here on the program. So stay tuned. We got a lot in the works and we got a lot more to do. Thanks very much, my dear friend. I really appreciate the time.
Snowman, anytime.
We got more for you after this break.
You're tuned in to the Daily BS. Sports and culture combined into one.
Welcome back to the program, folks. Don't forget that you can hit us on all of our social media using the ID SNW Digital Media. That's SNW Digital Media for Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. And speaking of having some great guests on the show that we distribute through all of our social media, don't forget to check out our Patreon as well. Uncle Smoothie is back. Chris Williams has joined me. How are you, my friend?
What's happening, partner? Thank you so much for bringing me back. I must be doing something well.
Yeah, you're doing a lot of things well. Man, listen, all right, this is the one of the few times where I'm going to be a fan. What the hell happened?
All right, well, it's a lot going on. What the hell happened concerning, be more specific for me. A little bit more specific, man.
With our
it's
sports,
a lot you can say that too.
I know. Boy, isn't that the truth? That's a conversation for later. That's probably a conversation for Snowman Unfiltered, and that's a shameless plug, as you all know. But the sports world has ground to a halt for very good reason.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong. Very good reason.
No doubt.
But damn it, I'm a fan.
No doubt. Well, you know what? Right now, obviously safety comes first.
Indeed.
But guys like you and myself who love sports, right now I'm a little bit more, I'm still active. I can play a little bit here and there. So it's a tough time. It's so tough, man.
Yeah, it is.
Only thing we can really kind of sink our teeth in is a little bit of football news.
Yeah.
But, during this time period, there's so much that's usually going on. So we're in a tough spot.
I miss March Madness so much.
Listen, Snowman, I am so disappointed from that aspect. I did the last basketball game on ESPN as a color commentator of the 2020 season.
Yeah.
I did a MAC championship, MAC tournament game, Siena versus Fairfield, which was the last game that they shut everything down with.
Yeah.
So during that time period, everyone was just so disappointed. The atmosphere in the arena was so down, Snowman.
Yeah.
The players, parents, coaches, people working in the arena, because obviously we didn't know what was going on.
Right.
And we had just heard that a number of tournaments were shut down. I believe that day, the Big East tournament at halftime had shut down. We finished up our game, which was the last one. No fans.
Yeah.
So that wasn't a great atmosphere to begin with, but we thought we would at least be able to get through it. So you just know everyone was so disappointed, and the faces on those young people was, it was the worst.
I bet. I saw the report. I saw the reports flying in. When I checked out of work, I saw the reports flying in Big East was canceled. Big Ten was canceled.
Correct.
Pac-12 was canceled. I mean, the cancellations were flying in by the second.
Yes, they were. I believe the MAC conference was the last one to cancel.
Were the last one.
Therefore, we were the last game that was played, which was a tournament game, obviously, to try to figure out who would go to the NCAA tournament.
Yes.
And nothing conspired, and everybody was just so disappointed.
Yeah.
They had to shut everything down.
It's disappointing, but it's a safety issue, and when you have a safety issue, you have to take every precaution necessary. And I say it on this show.
And you're dealing with young people who are amateurs. I think that's important to note also.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to take that in consideration.
You have to take everything into consideration, especially the safety of the fans, the safety of the players. It was thought of by the NCAA that they were going to have the tournament games without fans, which would have been a weird atmosphere, and you experienced that.
It would have been very weird, but at least we would have had it.
Yeah.
And I've seen reports and I've read up, just doing a little bit of research on it after everything was canceled.
Yep.
A number of people were looking forward to at least trying to get the tournament going.
Mm-hmm. At least the first four in Dayton. At least the first four in at least the first four in Dayton. But if you don't have the fans and if you don't have the players and this pandemic spreads and in a closed area, it could spread very, very fast, and it could also bring a lot of panic, which is why Adam Silver shut the NBA down, postponed the season, and said we're going to make sure we help the country get this under control first before we resume any games. And he's looking into arena availability come August because he wants to get this season complete. Which brings this question to you: do we start over with the NBA, or do we complete this season? Your thoughts?
I really think we complete the season if it comes to that point. A number of players are putting a lot of hard work, coaches and all these groups, and you want to try to finish up something that you started. I don't think it would be fair to start over until you start a new season.
Fair enough.
So I would be a fan of starting exactly where you stopped off, because you have the number of players who've had really good years. You know, you have that MVP race, and I've seen you go back and forth. Well, actually, you know what? I haven't seen you go back and forth. I know you have a clear-cut winner.
Yeah, and it's Giannis.
Obviously, people want to throw their hat in that ring also. So I would like to see it start where it ended, in my opinion.
Yeah. You want to pick it up where you left off, and get some questions answered. Can Milwaukee finally complete the picture and get their first NBA title since 1974?
Yes.
Can the Los Angeles Lakers get their first title since 2010? Those are the two big storylines. Can the Golden State Warriors swing a trade for Karl Anthony Towns and get themselves back in the competition and have a good end to this season?
Man, I like it.
I'm just getting started. Can the Warriors swing a trade for Karl Anthony Towns and bait Minnesota with Andrew Wiggins? And get them. Look, I put this rumor out there 2 weeks ago, and I think it's going to happen. Can the Houston Rockets use microball to get themselves to a title? My answer is no, but I know other people will say different. Let's go on.
Well, check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're throwing a lot at me. Let me just jump on one. Can I jump on one, please?
Take a couple.
Because I love watching your Facebook feed. And if anyone doesn't know, the Snowman gives you a lot of good nuggets out there. And I sit back and watch and laugh and comment here or there.
Yeah.
But one I have to jump on. The Houston Rockets. I've never been a fan of the way they play. Unfortunately, because James Harden is so good of a one-on-one basketball player, he gets a lot of love, and I give him kudos for that. But there's no way the Rockets can win playing the way they play. And it's sad that we feed into it year in and year out. There's no way you can win playing like that, Snowman.
Amen.
And then you bring Westbrook over, and that just really just ruins him.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that thinks that.
Neither guy can do it by themselves. It's unfortunate.
And they've tried.
So I just want to tackle one of them.
And they've tried.
Oh, no, they tried. Because the NBA season is so long, you're going to have games where guys are going to have big numbers. And they are that good where they can score a lot of points and be effective on certain nights. Mm-hmm. But in a 7-game series, when it becomes more close-knit, a grind-out type affair, the scouting reports are intense.
Yep.
There's no way you can play like that and beat someone in a 7-game series, especially if it's a good team when we get into the playoffs.
And Lord knows they've tried 4 of the last 5 years.
Yes.
They've run into Golden State, the kings of microball. But here's the difference between the way Golden State plays microball and the way Houston plays microball. Golden State spreads the ball around.
Right.
Golden State has had a big man.
There's movement.
Golden State has had a big man to depend on. Anybody remember Andrew Bogut? Anybody remember Kevin Durant? Anybody remember Zaza Pachulia? They ran the ball through Pachulia, and they've gotten some effective shots.
And they play better motion offense, whereas the Houston Rockets play ISO basketball.
Yep.
So there should be an argument from someone who's listening who say, well, listen, Snowman Smooth, how dare you say that? The year they had Chris Paul, they took the Warriors to a 7th game.
Yeah,
and you're exactly right. Because of Chris Paul, who's a solid point guard who understands how to play playoff basketball. That's why they were that close, and they possibly could have beaten the Warriors that year.
No.
But not with Russell Westbrook
I
doing
say
what
no.
he does.
I say no with Chris Paul, and here's why. They should have closed them out. I'm speaking of the Rockets. In 2018, they get a 3-2 lead. They hold the Warriors to under 100 points in Houston in Game 5. They should have closed them out in Oakland in Game 6.
Oh, yes, they should have. You're right. I totally agree.
An 11-point lead at halftime, and you only put up 25 points in the second half, and you get mauled.
The bottom line is it comes down to the isolations.
Yep.
And when that game was closed out, you were going to Harden and letting them go one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tough. It's tough to do that in the playoff series.
It is.
Because night in and night out, everybody's going to make adjustments. That's the one great thing about professional sports. You're not going to continue to get over on your talent and your athleticism. Somebody's going to make the adjustment.
Yeah.
We see it in all sports: football, basketball, Lamar Jackson. Nobody can catch up. Somebody's going to catch up with you sooner or later.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to happen.
The Tennessee Titans caught up with him and made him a one-dimensional player.
It happens. It happens.
On a Saturday night, they made him a one-dimensional player, which is the one thing I was afraid of with that Tennessee defense. You know, the Warriors made the Rockets one-dimensional, while the Warriors did not. And here's the biggest difference. In the series in 18 and 19, the Rockets had the Warriors down, but did the Warriors go away from what they do best? No.
Never. Well, it was a championship pedigree that they established. And it's in their DNA. They stuck with what was well for them, and it worked. They won championships doing it. The Rockets haven't done it yet, so I don't understand why they're going to stick with it. And it's unfortunate that D'Antoni continues and consistently gets a job in the league. I can't get it.
Yeah, I don't really get it.
I'm not one of those guys who advocates for people getting fired, but I just don't understand how year in and year out this man has a gig in the NBA.
I don't get it either. You know who should be coaching the Rockets right now, but it'll never happen? Kenny Atkinson.
It probably will not. And he's a very good coach.
It ain't going to happen for two very simple reasons. James Harden and Russell Westbrook. Just like Kyrie Irving, and I'll get to him in a moment. Just like Kyrie Irving. Just like Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant got him out of Brooklyn. And the Brooklyn Nets should still be the New Jersey Nets, but I digress.
Oh, my man. No, man. Well, check this out. Let's make this clear. The NBA is a players' league. They run the league. Those guys decide on who should be their coach, what they're going to do. In most cases, again, I've been in some NBA huddles.
Yep.
Whatever play that's run by the coach is decided by those players once they get on the floor.
True.
Huge Philly fan, you know, I'm born and raised in Philly, loved Allen Iverson. But the story was always that Allen Iverson did his own thing. Larry Brown would run some excellent plays.
Mm-hmm.
But once these guys get on the floor, this guy goes solo.
Yeah.
But he's so good, it works.
Yeah, it works. It works.
It works.
For a while, it was Michael Jordan.
Now, the type of coach that usually works in the NBA for teams that are trying to get across that hurdle, a coach who's won a championship. Obviously, there's not that many of them out there. Those are the guys who put their foot down and demand certain guys and certain teams to do what needs to be done because they can always bring that ring into their face.
Yep. And Larry Brown tried to do it with Allen Iverson.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
That was a tough one.
You know, and you know what's crazy? Michael Jordan was that way for a while, and then Phil Jackson showed up and put his foot down. But the difference being, and I love Allen Iverson. Don't get me wrong, love Allen Iverson.
Same here. Let's make that clear. Like I said, born and raised in Philly, I would always jokingly tell people, Allen Iverson can take 4 guys off the street and win a couple of games in the league with us. That's how good he was.
But again, Michael Jordan was Allen Iverson for a while until Phil Jackson showed up. The only difference being Michael Jordan was willing to listen, and it made him better, and it made him greater. Bronzexuals, listen carefully. 2 things Michael Jordan did that made him greater. He was willing to listen, and he implemented everything that Phil Jackson put in his head. Because Mike knew, especially with the Detroit Pistons, it was a mind game more than a physical game.
Yes, indeed.
The Pistons made it physical. Indeed. Michael Jordan made it mental, especially in 1991 when the Bulls swept the Detroit Pistons. And what happens when you have a leader willing to listen to a coach? It filters down into the teammates. Just ask Stephen Curry. Just ask Klay Thompson. Just ask Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr played with Michael Jordan.
Yes, he did.
Steve Kerr played with MJ.
I can't remember what year was that, Snowman.
1997.
Kerr knocked down that mid-range jumper.
1997.
Jordan called that in the huddle before they came out.
Yep, and Michael just looked at Steve and said, "You be ready." And Steve looked at him back and said, "I'll be ready to knock it down." And he knocked it down. When you have teammates like that, and I'm leading right into Kyrie Irving with this, folks, and a lot of people are going to be upset with me, but I don't care. I've discussed this on my show. You've heard me discuss this on my show.
Let's hear it.
The Kyrie experiment in Brooklyn needs to end now.
Well, I'm just going to toss this out as a debate point, which I love. It hasn't started yet. I agree with you. I don't think it's going to go well. But we like to see both of them on the floor because as a star, when you become a superstar, in my opinion, is when you understand you have to share. You have to share, and sometimes you have to take a step back and sacrifice. I want to see both of them on the floor together and see what happens. But that's the area where most stars have a problem. Understanding they have to share and sacrifice some of their game to make others better.
Which is why I feel right now the Nets won't win a darn thing, because you have a player in Kyrie Irving that won't share. Talk to LeBron James about that.
We haven't seen him and KD together yet. You got to give him the benefit of the doubt.
No, I will not. Fairness. You want to talk about fairness? Yeah. He had 2 years to be the leader in Boston, and it went sideways.
Agree. What I believe happened in Boston, Kyrie comes in, he wants to be the alpha male, and those young guys, Brown and Tatum, those guys were very, very good. I don't think he realized how good they were. And they had done so much the previous year.
Yep.
And they were basically like, listen, man, we can't take a step backwards just because you came here.
Right.
We still need to shine. Jason Tatum is going to be an MVP candidate before it's all said and done.
Next year.
He's that good.
I'm calling it right now. Next year, he will be an MVP candidate.
Yes. And I don't think he needed to be a sidekick. And Kyrie learned that early on. And another issue we haven't touched on, Kyrie's injury prone.
That's obvious.
You got to be able to play 82 games or at least come out and show me I'm the leader. I can sustain my body, being able to tell you what to do and being able to do it myself and be out there able to play. And he hasn't done that for a full season in a while.
I don't think he's done it. I don't think he's done it in the last 7 years.
I don't even think he's done it his entire career.
I don't think he's done it in the league. I don't think Kyrie's played a full 82 games since he's been in the league. Right. Hell, he didn't even play a full season at Duke. He played 11 games.
Right. Well, I said throughout his entire career, he's been very injury prone. Now, for him, what he's excellent at, he's a huge, big-time player in closing moments. He does well when the lights are on. He closes out games, but he's a one-on-one guy. He likes to pass the rock. Mm-hmm. He'll give it a headache. But when you're playing with other good players, they need to touch it also.
You know what? I made
and that's
this,
why Kemba Walker is a much better fit for the Celtics.
I love Kemba Walker.
Kyrie.
Love Kemba
Yes.
Walker as a fit in Boston. I made this argument on my show, and I want to get your thoughts. The same big-time shot that made Kyrie Irving also broke him. And I'm talking about the shot he hit in 2016 to beat Golden State and win the title. That shot made him, and the next season broke him because he got
Explain
cooked.
how it broke him. I need to get a little bit more insight on how it broke him.
In simplest terms, he got cooked in 5 games. He got absolutely blistered because the Warriors figured out what to do. They sent different people at him, and Kyrie couldn't handle it. Kyrie could not handle it. It wasn't just Stephen Curry guarding Kyrie Irving. That's the match. If you're Kyrie, that's the matchup you want. You don't want to see Klay Thompson.
No question about it. You want that matchup, yes.
You don't want to see Klay Thompson. You don't want to see Andre Iguodala. You definitely don't want to see Kevin Durant. It was a height difference. Steve Kerr figured out, okay, it's going to be a height difference. So let me send
you need
three bigger
some
players.
length and athleticism on a guy like Kyrie.
Yeah, and Andre Iguodala baked him in an oven in 2 games in the 2 games in Oakland, especially the final game. And I love the fact that Steph got his revenge, and that's a selfish pleasure for me when Steph brought the ball through his legs, wrapped it around him, got Kyrie one way, leaned the other way, and banged home a 3 that clinched the title. And, and Steph just looked back and said, we're even. Okay, we're even. Right. So, and then Kyrie was out of there.
Let's take a little bit of the emotional bias out of it, because it sounds as though you're a Warriors fan. So I'm gonna squeeze a little bit out of you from that standpoint. In fairness to Kyrie, again, I like this advocate that I'm playing here. Kind of reminds me of First Take, what we're doing here. So Kyrie, exceptional one-on-one player. That's what he does well. So at the end of games in the NBA, you don't need to call a play for him. Give him an ISO.
I'll give you that.
Clear out a side for him. He's going to get to the basket or get a shot that he wants.
I'll give you
that.
Which
he did to close out. Right, which he did to close out the championship season that one year.
Yes.
I don't know the years. I know you're good with numbers.
2016.
We talked about how teams at the NBA level, NFL level, at the professional level make adjustments.
Yes.
Warriors make their adjustments. Understand you need to put some length on him.
Mm-hmm.
You need to put some height on him, some athleticism on him. He's still a very good one-on-one player, but him not understanding that he needs to share, he could have made other people better.
So do you think that happens in Brooklyn?
But I think that selfish mentality is still in his head. I can close this out on my own. Because at that stage, LeBron wasn't even the closer for the Cavaliers.
No,
they would allow Kyrie to close out games.
And that was the move that the Cavaliers needed to make. They needed to build around Kyrie. And if you really want to think about it, when LeBron returned, that deflated him. When LeBron returned to Cleveland, that deflated Kyrie because for 3 years, they built around Kyrie Irving. They built around him.
Right.
And then LeBron comes back, some people go packing, and then Kyrie's going, now what the hell do I do?
Well, there was certainly some alpha male issues with Kyrie and LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
I think Kyrie, after making the shot in that first championship season, was basically, I'm an alpha. I really believe I can have my own team. I know Kyrie had a really great relationship with Kobe. I think maybe some of those discussions were there.
Yeah.
But I don't think he was mentally prepared to have his own team. We saw it firsthand in Boston.
Yeah.
It's more than just what you do on the floor. We talked about him not being able to go an entire season without being injured. And all this plays out.
And being a leader in the locker room.
How he handled the media on certain occasions, certain things he said. He hadn't grown and matured to the point to be an alpha. And we haven't seen just yet now if he can be the alpha in Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. I think it's a growth process. I think it's part of your maturity. But if you want to be the true superstar that we believe you can be, you have to make other people better.
And he hasn't.
You have to make me feel good about my game, make me feel good about making shots, make me feel good about being on the floor at the end with you. If you can't do it, can I feel comfortable enough to know, Kyrie, you'll get me the ball, and if I make it, you're happy for me. A la Ron Artest, Metta World Peace, Kobe gives him the shot. He knocks down a three, and he jokingly says, "Kobe, pass me the ball."
Yeah, 2010, and that sealed the that sealed the championship.
Right.
That's
you
the
have to
biggest
make
difference.
Other guys, other players around you feel good about what they bring to the table.
I'll close with this point. I've had so many people dive into my argument of LBJ versus MJ, and I said the biggest difference is Michael Jordan made his teammates better. And I've had people argue with me, well, LeBron's made his teammates better. Okay, let me pose a question to you. Has LeBron ever had that much confidence in Kyrie where Kyrie would knock down the winning shot and people would throw 2016 at me? And I say Kyrie did that on his own. He didn't do that, with the push from LeBron that LeBron was supposed to give him. Steve Kerr is a different story. Steve Kerr had the confidence from MJ after Kerr missed a big shot in Game 4. Game 6 at the United Center, Mike looked at Steve, and Steve looked back at Michael, and Steve said, "I'll knock down the shot," and Steve knocked down the shot. That's a big difference. Right. For me, that's a huge, huge difference. That's Uncle Smoothie. Chris Williams talking a little hoops with yours truly, the Snowman. Tell everybody where they can find you, my friend.
My man Snowman, is always a pleasure. They can find me on Instagram, Hear Chris Speak, Twitter, Hear Chris Speak, and if you're still on Facebook, like the older ones like you and myself, Chris B. Last name Williams, WILLIAMS.
All right.
Now, Snowman, you have to let me give a rebuttal on that last point.
Go ahead.
I got to come back on the last point because I love your emotional bias. We know you love the Bulls. We know you love Chicago.
That's my hometown. That's my hometown. I got to bring that up. All right, finish it.
Now check this out. In all honesty, both guys make people better. LeBron has always made other people better, and that's been his knock. He's always played the game the right way. The difference between those two is Michael is a certified killer. He goes for the neck, smells blood, and he will not let you go. LeBron, more, okay, you know what, I'll let you play for a little bit. Let's make it competitive and see if I can do something here. No, Michael wants to snuff you out. I love the way Chauncey Billups made the comparison of the two. He said the difference between the two is no one could eat when Michael was on his watch. He kept so many superstars away from winning a championship.
Yes.
Ewing, Barkley, all these guys. None of these guys sniffed it when Michael was on his watch because he wanted to step on your neck. And as Chauncey said, everybody eats during LeBron's reign. So I'm going to sum it up that way.
And there's truth to that. Shout to Chauncey Billups with that.
There, I love that, man.
Mr. Big Shot himself, Chauncey Billups with that quote. Thanks a lot, my friend. I really appreciate it.
Last one, Snowman. I can't let you go without this. Give me a little bit of Dave Zinkoff since you went into announcers.
And
can I get the dot
forward from University of Massachusetts, captain of the Eastern Conference Championship team, Julius the Dr. Irving.
That's my Philly fam. Each time we talk, we got to close out with that. That's classic.
Gotta have Zink to close it out. And I got some old Sixer games when they used to be on CBS. I got some of those now in my library, and I'm loving it. Thanks a lot, my friend. I truly appreciate the time.
I appreciate it, partner. Thank you so much.
More for you in a deuce.
In times of need, this is what most insurance sounds like.
What's your policy number?
But insurance with AAA sounds like this.
Is everyone okay?
See the difference at AAA.com/insurance.
You're tuned in to the Daily BS. Sports and culture combined into one.
Welcome back to the program, and thank you for joining us. Let me bring in William Morgan. I haven't had him on in a while. And William, what in the world is going on here?
No idea, man. This is just some tough times that we're going on, but yep. I believe if we stand together, we can get through it.
All right, let's get to it. I had some people tell me, and you're going to love this, that because of the pandemic that has hit our country, LeBron will not get his fourth ring. I actually had someone tell me that. I'm dead serious. I had someone tell me that. I led off the show with this, but I wanted to get, as I smile wickedly, I wanted to get your thoughts on it, because this is ridiculous, this is stupid, and this is people trying to look through rose-colored glasses, in my opinion.
Well, you also know that people are saying that this has something to do with Donald Trump's impeachment, too, which is just utterly ridiculous.
I've heard that, too.
Oh, my goodness, man. Utterly ridiculous. Look, an NBA season can be made up.
Yep.
And if it's in the cards for LeBron to win a fourth, it will happen. Don't sit here and blame a pandemic or something that's taking people, loved ones away from us, and trivializing it to something like, this is keeping LeBron from winning his fourth ring. You are classless for saying that. You're an idiot for saying that. And, you know, it's just ridiculous to either put that with something on much of a small scale as LeBron winning a fourth ring.
I know you've heard that. I know you've heard that complaint. I know I'm not the only one that's heard that complaint.
You're not the only one. I have heard that, and that's ridiculous.
It is.
That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. It is ridiculous because when you break it down, when you break it down, LeBron wasn't even leading his team in statistical categories except assists. That was Anthony Davis.
Yep.
And if you think about it, you want to hear something real ridiculous? Anthony Davis has not been even mentioned in the MVP conversation.
Nope. Not at all. Not at all. It's crazy. It's just ridiculous to put something that has taken away, something that has crippled America and trivializing it to something that goes in a sports event. That's asinine. That's stupid. And a season can be made up.
Yes.
And if a fourth trophy, a fourth title is in the cards for LeBron, it'll happen. So get off that. That's ridiculous.
And here's another thing that I've heard. See, this is what gets on my nerves about these millennial fans. And you've heard me complain about millennial fans on this program several hundred times over. They want to trivialize that, number one. Number two, they want to trivialize the Lakers, who I believe were going to come up short of a title anyway, and, put it to the blame of the pandemic or the stoppage. Listen, Adam Silver, to his credit, is doing everything possible to get the NBA resumed, part one. But here comes part two. You want to do it safely. And you want to do it with fans in the stands. You want to do it where we get back to some kind of normalcy and get out of this new normal that we're in right now with all the social distancing. And, folks, you have to practice that. You got to